everybody is ready. Just as a friendly reminder, if you are not one of the commissioners and you're not being asked to speak, if you could please turn off your video as well as mute yourself so we don't get any background noise. Okay, looks like we're good to go. Take it away, Chair. I'll go ahead and start recording.
Recording in progress.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see everyone's faces again. Okay, let's get started. Well, let me just read the call to order and then we'll talk about the agenda order. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 9th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. This is a special meeting and is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with State of California Executive Order number 29-20 dated March 17th, 2020. We are conducting the meeting using the Zoom platform and streaming it live on the city website and broadcasting on Comcast Channel 15, as well as via the city YouTube channel. Public members had the opportunity to submit emails to city staff. A report of all written comments was distributed to Planning Commission members via email and posted to the city's website under documents received after published agenda. And with that, Denise, if you could take roll call for us.
Good evening. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Good evening, present.
Commissioner Bonilla.
Here, and happy holidays.
Commissioner Goldstein.
Here.
Commissioner Lowe.
Here.
Commissioner Okenda.
Here.
Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Chair Roche.
Here.
Thank you. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. So before we get started, we're going to move, if it's okay with everybody, we're going to move the elections of the officers to the end of the meeting, just because we're expecting potentially a lot of callers tonight. We're realizing everyone on hold might be waiting to get to the item. So if everyone's okay with that, we'll just do that as our second item tonight. Is that amenable? Thank you. Okay, great. So then let's go ahead and get into our item for tonight. So agenda item number 2, now 1, is a proposed development. Oh, wait, actually, hold on. I take that back. I think I missed public comments. I apologize. Yeah, let's go to public comments first. The public comment section provides an opportunity to address the Planning Commission on items not listed on the agenda. The Planning Commission welcomes your comments and requests that speakers present their remarks in a respectful manner. Speakers wishing to address the Planning Commission should limit their comments to 3 minutes. And just a reminder to everyone listening, this is just for comments not on the agenda. When we bring up the Berkeley items agenda, which is the one item tonight, you will have an opportunity to speak to that item later. So this is just for not agendized items. And now, Ms. Chan, if you would moderate the public comment portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. At this time, we do not have any attendees.
Oh.
At all.
Oh, okay. Maybe this won't be. Maybe this won't be such a long meeting after all. Let's see. Okay, so no one.
There are no attendees. I can read the disclaimer. Right. Would you like me to read the disclaimer?
Sure. Why don't you go ahead and just to see if anyone pops on.
1 second. If you wish to speak and you are using the Zoom application, please click the raise hand button. If you are dialing in, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and use *6 to unmute yourself. If you are streaming the meeting through Zoom on your computer but dialing in via phone, please mute yourself so that there is no feedback sound during the meeting. If there is disruptive feedback or excessive noise, your audio will be disabled. All right. So far, nobody has called in.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, as long as we don't think there's any technical difficulties, right? Because I'm surprised, usually even on a regular meeting, there's 0 attendees, but let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and close public comments. But if for some reason there is, we find out later people wanted to speak, we can maybe bring that back up again. But for now, I'm closing public comments, and we're going to move on to our agenda item for this evening.
May I ask a question, Chair?
Sure.
So I was wondering, since no one has called in, I was wondering if we might want to consider going back to the way the agenda items are listed on the agenda, because I'm worried that the public might think that they have more time to chime in.
Oh, later. We can do that if everyone feels differently. I mean, there was another reason for potentially moving it to the end, and that was just that whoever takes over at this point will take over the meeting immediately.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
And there was also, just the thought that maybe we would get through this meeting and then let the person who takes over start anew next time.
Okay,
so
sorry
it depends.
about that.
I mean, I'm open to it, whoever, if anyone else wants to comment about that, but that was sort of the other reason.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. Sorry. I just was thinking, I just didn't want anyone to miss out if they wanted to speak. That's all.
Chair, I have a suggestion to
Sure.
everyone, to the Planning Commission and staff, for now and for future, that whenever there's an election of officers, that the change occurs at the next meeting. That way it doesn't disrupt the flow of the meeting, and you're prepared, the chair is prepared, vice chair or secretary. So it makes more sense that when you take over, the new elected officers take over, it will be at the next full meeting. Okay. That is my recommendation.
Thanks, Ms. Chan. Commissioner Bonilla, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. I could not agree more with Ms. Chan. That is such a great way of doing it. We should always do elections at the end of the meeting, so that the incoming chair and vice chair have some time to get prepared before they just get surprised with their nomination and then their need to run a meeting. It's pretty jarring at times.
Yeah, I agree, because that happens.
For making that recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonilla. I agree, because it was jarring when I took it, but I had some good support. Thank you, from our former chair, Commissioner Bonilla. So yeah, but it was so good. So we'll agree. We'll keep that at the end of the meeting. And I agree. Like, I don't know what we need to do to change that, but going forward, let's maybe Jeremy, you hear us on that one, that election of officers always goes at the end of the meeting in the future.
We can definitely do that.
Okay, great. So let us move forward with our first item. It's a proposed development of a new industrial campus with 2 industrial buildings measuring approximately 233,000 square feet and 155,000 square feet, and related site improvements requiring major site plan review and conditional use permit approval, and review and approval of a mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the former Berkeley Farm site located at 25450 and 2550 Cloudwater Road, assessor parcel numbers 439-0080-001-00 and 439-008-003-14. George Condon on behalf of Dermody Properties. And let's see, the Cloudwater Road LLC and the property owner. Okay, and with that, we have a staff report.
Chair Roach.
Hi, Ms. Schmidt.
It's nice to see all of you guys tonight. I just want to make sure that, Jeremy, that we're good to start with the presentation.
We are. Yeah, you should be able to share your screen. Mm-hmm.
Okay, wasn't sure. Okay, so I will start with the presentation. One moment, as every single time I struggle through this, because it's like, what's going to happen? So hold on one moment. Share. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Maybe like a thumbs up or yes. Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay. Yes, so this is a public hearing. It was continued from an October meeting to November, and now we're in December. And it's related to an application for major site plan review and the conditional use permit for redevelopment of the former Berkeley Farm site at 25450 to 5550 Cloudwater Road. So here's your site. It's outlined in red. It's about 20 acres, and it's composed of 2 parcels, one at the top of the triangle, the other at the bottom. And it's been used as for industrial purposes since the mid-1950s. Prior to that, it was used as agricultural land. And it was the site of the Berkeley Farms dairy and food manufacturer from about the mid-1990s until 2000. Berkeley Farms was a significant employer and contributor to the Hayward economy until that site shuttered. So the site is very important, as an industrial site, but also just as the heart of our industrial corridor. Dermody, the project proponent, purchased that site and demolished the buildings that Berkeley Farms had occupied in anticipation of this proposed redevelopment. It's currently vacant except for concrete slabs, which would be demolished as part of this project. As you can see from the site, just orienting you, Cloudwater Road runs along the western edge of the property site. This is down at the southern boundary line abutting the project site is the former Gillig site, which is another huge industrial property in Hayward, was a huge employer and tax generator. And then to the eastern side of the site, you have railroad tracks that run along the property boundaries. And then the I-880 corridor is shown here in yellow, and State Route 92 is down here on the southern part of the site. The site is surrounded by industrial development on all sides. Most of that development was built between the 1950s and the 1980s, and it's pretty much entirely occupied with industrial uses. Some commercial to the like southeast near the 880 and 92 corridor exchange.
I think there's a correction there. What you have marked on there is 880. That actually looks like Industrial Boulevard.
Oh, is it Industrial Boulevard?
Yeah. So I can see Cross Point Academy. Yeah, it's on industrial.
Yeah. So the 880 would be further here. Thank you so much for correcting me doing this quickly today. Okay. So here's the proposed project development program. Again, the entitlement consists of master site plan review and a conditional use permit. The project includes 2 speculative warehouses that would total approximately 233,000 and 155,000 square feet each. The project includes 2 employee amenity areas, 17% light site landscaping, about 230 parking stalls. And the uses in the speculative buildings would be manufacturing, warehousing, or other uses listed in the industrial district. Here's your site plan. Again, this is the triangular site. Building 1 is the larger of the 2 buildings, approximately 233,000 square feet. Building 2 is the smaller, 155,000 square feet, and they're set perpendicularly to each other. And they create a sort of continuous development wall along Cloudwater Road. The site would be accessed from 3 driveways, and the parking would be dispersed throughout the site. So you can see there would be kind of rows of parking along Cloudwater Road and along the building and then tucked behind the site. The parking bays would be located behind and to the sides of the building, so they wouldn't be visible from the right-of-way. And here's the detail of one of the amenities that I just described in the development program. The campus plaza area would be located at the northern corner of the site. And you can see down here at the corner of the slides, there's a little key plan, and in red, it's sort of showing you where this would be located. The campus plaza would feature food truck parking, which would pull up along here, secured furnishings, so like seats and tables, concrete seating walls, which are shown here in this sort of like abstract formation, integral concrete paving with different colors and patterns on the ground, and a mix of shade trees and ground covers. And then here is the second employee amenity area. This would run in a sort of linear fashion along Cloudwater Road, and you can see here in the key, it's shaded in red. It's nearer to the southern building at the bottom. And it would also feature that sort of the secured furnishings, chairs. It would also have the decorative paving and integral color, and it would be a mix of sort of landscaped and ground cover. The employee amenity areas would be connected with walking paths and through landscaping to reinforce the identity of a campus as a whole. And here's a rendering showing you that campus plaza area up at the northern part of the site. This is where the food trucks would be parked, and you can sort of see how even the ground would be used as an artistic element to tie the site together. And here are some elevations. This is the western elevation of the buildings. It's looking north along Clawwater Road. The building architecture, as you can see here, would employ a number of design strategies to break up the building massing and increase complexity along the frontages. There's use of color, different score lines, materials, panels. They break up the massing both vertically and horizontally. So even though the buildings they are big shell buildings, they don't really look like one big solid building from the front. In addition, differentiated materials would be used on building pop-outs, and the entrances and corners would be reinforced with these sort of sculptural wall elements that are like artistic in nature. In addition, you'd have glazing on the bottom, sort of indicating this is the entrance to the building. Here's the northern elevation. So this is looking south on Clawwater Road. In the foreground of this rendering, you can see the campus plaza area that I showed you a rendering of before. And then you can see that there's pretty robust landscaping along Clawwater Road in front of the building. And then here's a detail of one of those corners I was just talking about, and a close-up of that sculptural wall element. To the right of the rendering, you can see the linear employee amenity area that would be located along Clawwater Road. So as part of the proposed development project is quite large. An initial study and a mitigated negative declaration was prepared and found potentially significant impacts in the areas of biological resources, cultural resources, geology and soils, greenhouse gases, hazards, transportation and tribal cultural resources. All the other areas were found to be less than significant. The initial study and mitigated neg deck included an analysis of all the different impact areas and found and identified mitigation measures that could reduce all of those impacts to an area to a level of less than significant. A notice of intent to adopt that mitigated negative declaration was posted in accordance with state law on September 24th, 2021, and that kicked off the 30-day public review, which extended through October 2021. During the comment period, the city received 51 written comment letters requesting, basically every single one of them requested that an environmental impact report be prepared for the project. It's really important to note that 47 of those comment letters pertain specifically to this site being used as an Amazon last mile delivery station. The other letters also sort of base their comments on it, but were more generally related to construction emissions and potential future operations, as well as greenhouse gas emissions. So the 4 letters that I was just talking about really zeroed in on construction assumptions, potential vehicle trips, greenhouse gas analysis, and questions about hydrology, water quality, and cumulative impacts. Responses to all of those comments were provided to the commission and to the public as an attachment to the staff report. And as detailed in that response to comments document, staff and the CEQA consultant and all the experts reviewed and responded and felt that the mitigation measures and impacts as disclosed in the document complied with CEQA guidelines and no additional analysis is warranted. So with that, staff does believe that the commission can make the findings because the proposed development is consistent with general plan goals and policies as outlined in the staff report. It's consistent with the purpose, the intent, and the development standards of the general industrial district. And the industrial district design guidelines, which were very recently adopted in 2019. The site is designed to create a cohesive visual relationship between the buildings, the landscaping, the pedestrian walkways, vehicular circulation, and employee amenities to create a cohesive industrial campus. It's suitable to the scale of the site, which is the purpose of major site plan review. In addition, the architecture features, primary entrances that are oriented toward the street, artistic elements that make it really interesting and that tie the whole campus together. The development of the campus would signify significant reinvestment in the site and in the industrial area as a whole, particularly if you step back and you look at the Berkeley Farms redevelopment site. In addition to Gillig, it will really make a huge impact in the industrial sector at the scale of the region. And future uses would be subject to performance standards and use regulations set forth in the industrial districts, which would minimize potential nuisances. So there's 25 pages of conditions of approval, but I'm just going to highlight a few of them. One of them is that all the future uses shall follow the use regulations set forth in the general industrial district, with the exception that a truck terminal and or an Amazon last mile delivery station is prohibited at the site. And to be clear, a truck terminal, which is sort of what we consider in Hayward, consider last mile delivery. That's when goods come into a building, stay for less than 24 hours and get taken out and delivered direct to consumers. That's considered a truck terminal because it's not warehousing goods. We did this with the Amazon public area. I'm sure you guys remember. So it is considered a different use than warehousing and manufacturing. So that particular use is subject to a conditional use permit. So it would come before this body again. Secondly, there is a specific condition in this approval that would prohibit installation of that use. So the applicant would not only have to take forward a CUP for a truck terminal, they would have to reopen this conditional use permit to eliminate that condition from this approval. And the reason why I'm talking about this and trying to sort of push this point right now is because almost every single comment letter we received was specifically related to this particular issue. The other specific conditions are the employee amenity area shall be developed in accordance with the size, the placement, the furniture, and features as proposed in the plans. All the mitigation measures in the CEQA document were made conditions of approval of the project, and roadway dedications and fair share contributions to future improvement along Clawwater Road, bicycle improvements, and nearby signal installation were all made conditions of approval as well. So with that, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission approve major site plan review and conditional use permit to construct the industrial campus as described in the staff report and in this presentation, and approve the initial study and mitigated negative declaration and adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program that was prepared for the project. Staff did receive 2 pieces of correspondence prior to this meeting. One was an email, one was a letter. They were provided to the commission and posted to the website ahead of this meeting. In addition, I know the applicant is part of the panel and would like to just say a few words. They don't have a full presentation prior to taking questions and opening the public hearing. And that concludes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. Yeah, if the applicant would like to say something now, that would be great.
Hello, this is George Condon with Dermody Properties.
Hi, George.
Can you hear me? Hi,
yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me. Great. Well, good evening, Planning Commission members. Thank you for considering our project tonight. We submitted our entitlement package for this project on October 6th of 2020. The last 14 months, we've worked closely with staff to design the 2 industrial buildings we have presented. And we believe these buildings will put Hayward in the best position possible to secure quality jobs. We're currently negotiating with Rivian to lease both buildings for manufacturing and research. We have not signed a lease with them as of yet. If this project is delayed, I don't think it will be, but if it is delayed, Rivian is in a hurry to secure a facility and will most likely move on to another city rather. A number of people in Hayward and some outside of Hayward objected to our initial proposal to develop a last mile facility for Amazon. I won't go into that. I think Leah just addressed that. And we've made a considerable concession by prohibiting that use. But by prohibiting that use, we dealt with a number of objections to the entitlement package. And so we're happy that the broader community is happy with that decision. I just really want to highlight the fact that staff has done an incredible job over the last 14 months helping us shape this project. I think the city of Hayward is going to be proud of it. I think it will attract great employers who offer competitive jobs. The project's consistent with the general plan and the zoning ordinance. The site's close proximity to Highway 92 limits the impacts trucks will have on the city streets. There are no residential structures between our site and Highway 92, and our project is surrounded on all four sides by industrial buildings. We think it's a great fit for the proposed project. So again, thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Condon. I'm sure people will have questions in a little bit. Okay, so really quick. So it turns out there was technical difficulties, so the public didn't get to comment. So if you guys would just hold off for 1 minute with your questions, we're going to allow non-agendized public comments if there are any, and then we'll go back to commissioner questions. So Ms. Chan, do you want to moderate that, see if anyone is ready to comment on? Okay, so everyone put their hands on. Just this is public comment, not on the item at hand. Looks like we might have one. Ms. Chan, if you want to take that.
Okay, so we're going back to public comments. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
All right. If anyone wishes to speak on an item, not on this item, and you are using the Zoom application, please click the raise hand button. If you are dialing in, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and use *6 to unmute yourself. If you are streaming the meeting through Zoom on your computer, but dialing in via phone, please mute yourself so that there is no feedback sound during the meeting. If there is disruptive feedback or excessive noise, your audio will be disabled. All right, Chair, right now we have one hand. That is Liz Ortega. Let's see. She just went away.
Oh, she did. Okay, so everyone is probably waiting to comment on this item.
Okay.
Okay, but at least we allowed the opportunity, now that everyone got to be on. Okay, so let's go back. We're going to close public comment period, the public comment period again, and we will move on to commissioner questions. So everyone else, hold on. There will be a chance to comment on this item in a little bit. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Okenda.
Thanks. I feel like I've read the materials for this project like twice or three times now. I just wanted to ask a question on the mitigated negative declaration that just stood out to me on the tribal resources. I'm just unfamiliar with this area and kind of the procedure about how to protect tribal resources when they come up and when there's significant impact. I didn't see anything of, I couldn't really tell why there was an impact, but then it was marked as less than significant with mitigation incorporated, which is, and then also, is it usual for a tribe not to return a letter within the timeline that was sent? I think it's like the 30-day timeline. Is that typical? And like, what's the concern? Why was this marked as, possible significant before it can be mitigated? I'm just curious about this. It's page 129 of the initial.
Well, our CEQA consultant is on, but I'll take a stab. I haven't received comments on a tribal consultation letter. We send them out to tribes that have requested to receive such notice. That was a state law that was passed 7 or 8 years ago. So we do send it to a specific tribe, and we have the chairperson's name and contact information. We email and mail the letter out. It is not unusual to not hear from them. This is a very disturbed site. It's been developed probably I think if you read the background section of the staff report, this might be the third or fourth redevelopment of the site. It was used as agricultural uses, was a sheet metal fabrication site, and then Berkeley Farms, and now is redevelopment. So it's very likely that the site has been disturbed. However, and this is every project I work on, this is a potentially significant impact, because when you're digging in the ground in this area, you could potentially come across artifacts and tribal cultural resources. Every project that I work on, we mark it as potentially significant. And that's because we want to make sure that the conditions of approval state very plainly that if you find anything, you halt construction immediately and you follow the protocols in the mitigation measure. George, do you have anything else to add to that? Is there anything I'm sort of missing about best practices with CEQA and tribal cultural resources?
Thanks, Leah. I would just add that the likelihood of tribal cultural resources increases as you get closer to the bay or to rivers or just waterways in general. But like Leah mentioned, in this case, the site's been redeveloped multiple times in the past. The likelihood of encountering on this site is low, but you just never know. And so we have to mitigate it.
Okay, that's really helpful, just to understand for me why it's in there and marked that way that it is. I mean, now I'll know that moving forward too. And then just one more question that just came up for me. The applicant mentioned they were in talks with a company. Is that Rivian Automotive, like the electric car company?
Yeah, this is George Condon. Yes.
Okay. I thought I heard that. I just wanted to double check on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you. I just have a couple of quick questions about the building architecture, and I'm asking about the west elevation of building number 2. I'm just a little curious about the metal screen artwork. Is that affixed to the building's facade, or is it slightly cantilevered?
I'll defer to the, I think Leticia, yeah, there you go, to the applicant's team.
Hi, I'm Leticia DeBrito with Where Malcolm Architects. We prepared the plans on behalf of Amenity Properties. To answer your question, those screens are cantilevered. The proposed plan is to provide some backlighting behind those elements so that they have both impact during the day by playing of shadows across the building beyond the impact of themselves, and then also at night when the lighting behind the panels would also create an effect for anybody driving by. And then just to take a quick moment to talk a little bit about the artistic process of those screens. We do have within Where Malcolm, we're a fairly large architectural company. We have several offices and we have a team that is specifically a design team. And we also have a branding team. And in both those teams, we have people that have fine arts degrees, not just architecture degrees, but that have, a higher artistic sensibility. And we really designed this project in conjunction with them. And the big inspiration for those art panels was actually the works of Sol LeWitt, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but he's a very famous artist, especially in the 60s in the United States. He has murals that I personally really love. They're very graphic in nature. And I think because of the graphic nature on them, they're really evocative, whether you're talking about back then or now. They tend to be timeless and relevant, across decades and for a lot of different people. And so we really wanted to borrow those elements, and we designed the custom panels inspired by those panels from Sol LeWitt.
Thank you for that. I'm curious too about the use of the form liners, number 334, the vertical lines that are here. Can you talk a little bit about your idea about the facade design?
Sure. So part of also involving our artist team with the architectural design is really having the sculptural element not feel like something that's tacked on, but something that really speaks to and informs the design of the rest of the building. So ultimately, most of our projects, Amenity Properties, we build largely industrial developments. Concrete is the main material of that. And while the screens are a really great device to give really more visual impact to the pattern, we are ultimately typically working in concrete. And we also wanted to stay true to the material that these buildings are built out of. So the concept with both the form liner and also the Plaza pavement was to take this concept of strong geometric lines and then start to have that element inform the design of the remainder of the project in the strong vertical form liner lines on those panels, as well as the multi-directional pavement that is seen in the Plaza spaces.
Thank you for that. And I'm just curious too, the form liner, it looks like it's about 1 inch wide. Is it big enough to actually, on a building of that size, to actually make that impact? Does that work? I'm just curious.
Sure. So the form liner is each of the, I would say the recesses are 1 to 2 inches wide, but then they are spaced about, I want to say this pattern is 5 to 6 inches wide. So it does give a closely spaced effect, but it does read, especially when they are in the lighter colors, as we have shown on the project, because what will happen with the lighter colors is the effect of the shadows as they hit the building really deepen how the form liner is read throughout the day.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that. And then the final question is, why did you not choose more vibrant colors?
Sure. And that's a great question. I think part of our both Dermody's design aesthetic, and then I know for myself, we really gravitate to things that are impactful, contemporary, but also timeless. I know sometimes colors can really be something that looks great right now, but colors have a very, they can really be in fashion. I don't know about you, but sometimes we walk through buildings and we see certain colors where we know, oh, yep, that was a color that was very popular in the 80s in warehouses. And you really can start to date buildings by them. So by gravitating towards geometric shapes in a more neutral palette, the hope is that the building will remain contemporary and impactful for a long time to come.
Thank you. And I appreciate your design.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lowe.
So first, thank you, staff, for your presentation. I thought that was great. And thank you for answering those questions from the other commissioners. So one of the questions I had was, I noticed that the developer is required to pay in part, at least, for street lights and a bike lane. And I wanted to know, is that the complete cost of those things, or is it a prorated share? And was there a transportation impact study or some sort of study to know that those things were like the costs? How do we know how much the long-term costs will be of those things? And is the developer being required to pay a portion of that?
That's a great question. And I absolutely am 100% defer to our engineering staff who know about all of this stuff. Stephen wants to jump on, and then, I don't know if you want to tag team with others.
Good evening, Commissioner Lowe. So to answer your question, for the traffic signal at the Plaza eastbound 92 ramp, the applicant will be paying a portion of that. That portion was determined based on the number of trips that their project is expected to generate, so their level of impact. And then for the bicycle lane costs are derived from the city's adopted bicycle and pedestrian master plan. And those are for the full amount for their frontage, so the length of their frontage.
So for the traffic lights, when you said the number of trips for how long? Like for 5 years or 10 years or in other words, is there maintenance? Is maintenance of the lights considered as part of the cost that they are paying?
It is the cost of the construction and of the traffic signal, and the number of trips is associated with the land use and not over time. So it is the number of trips that is generated by a general light industrial usage.
Okay, so not over time. Got it. And I noticed in the plan that several trees will be removed, several will be planted. But when I looked at it, and unless I read it incorrectly, which is very possible, but it looked like the trees that were being removed appeared to be different types of trees than the ones that were going to be planted. Am I right about that? And if so, why?
So as part of anytime somebody's removing trees, and they would be considered protected trees because the trees that were put in there were part of the Berkeley Farms development project back in the 90s. the applicant has to submit an arborist report. And what they do is typically, they have their own campus, right? They're developing these walking paths and these employee amenity areas and parking and buildings that aren't the same as Berkeley Farms project, right? Which was just one big building in the middle and a maintenance yard next to it. So the plantings and the placement of those trees don't make sense with a new project. So they're going to be pulling out the existing trees, and the arborist report looks at the types of trees, the sizes, the health of them, and gives a valuation to those trees. And then the applicant has to mitigate by placing at least that and then plus additional trees on the site. The landscape architect works with the city's landscape architect. So the applicant hires a landscape architect. They work with the city's landscape architect to come up with approved plant palette that makes sense for the area, for the site, and then for, the, long-term health in the area. Now, why the specific trees that are there now are not being planted again is because, just like paint colors on buildings, tree trends change, and maybe there's hardier varieties out there or a different palette that would fit with the type of development that they're proposing versus, the type of development that went up in the mid-90s. But rest assured, there will be many, many more trees on the site than are there, were planted for Berkeley Farms.
Okay. And then I wanted to know, is there any way to, I'm sure not require, but at least strongly encourage the tenant to hire Hayward residents or have that as a priority?
This is a good question. I'm not sure. The zoning ordinance, which is what I measure the proposed development and entitlements, which includes major site plan review and a conditional use permit. There's nothing in our zoning ordinance that requires the developer or end users to hire local Hayward residents. It is not something by law that I can require of the applicant. It looks like George may want to speak here.
Well, I could just, and Paul Nguyen might be able to speak to this better, but most cities, it's never been a requirement of me in 32 years, but most cities seek to work with us to hold job fairs and introduce our tenants, employers, to residents of Hayward. And it usually is very effective at getting jobs for residents of Hayward.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Let's see, any other commissioners with questions before I go? Okay. I did have a few kind of along the lines of what Commissioner Lowe asked about with, is it sort of like, cost for a one-time fee to contribute to the, the light fixture or something long-term? Because we had that conversation during the Winton potential Alameda or potential Amazon site, talking about sort of road improvements and what occupants of these buildings are going to do to sort of impact the local roads. And although I understand, this, we're not at all talking about that here, like that's prohibited for this site. In the future, there could be. So I'm wondering, after that discussion about the Amazon distribution site at the other location, was there any conversations within the staff to talk about what we might do to hold some of these, some of these type of, people accountable for the potential future road usage or impacts?
So I can see Scott Wickstrom came alive. Stephen Chang did too. So I'm going to defer to them to talk.
Please.
Yeah, good evening, Chair Roche, Scott Wickstrom, Development Services Engineer. There is, in state law, it's referred to as the Mitigation Fee Act. And it is the what allows cities to charge impact fees to developers. And the law is fairly specific that it's really for capital one-time expenditures and is not intended to be used for maintenance. So if we use the example of the traffic light that's being required at, or at least a portional share, at Clawwitter and 92, this would only be for the capital construction costs. The ongoing maintenance, the electricity, swapping out of light bulbs, painting the poles, et cetera, as the years go by, that cost would be borne by the city. The presumption that is sometimes thrown in with this fee act is that the development will create ongoing revenue through whether it's sales tax, property tax, business to business kind of taxes, et cetera, that will help contribute to that maintenance. And the Mitigation Fee Act is really intended to focus on the one-time impacts and making sure that those are addressed.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That makes sense. So the idea is that the site itself will generate, fees that go to the city pool that can help with the maintenance of the roads. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And then the other question I had was, there was a lot of data in here about greenhouse gas emissions and, a lot of letters about that fact. And I know a lot of it was based on this might be this last mile distribution center, which it's not going to be, but because it's been brought up and I had a lot of questions about that, and this idea, I think it was the Alameda Labor Council asked about, talked about the cumulative impact, that each one of these, we look at each one of these developments as an island, which I mean, I know you don't necessarily in the staff side, but, we kind of evaluate that. And then the greenhouse gas emissions are evaluated based on what's going to come off of this site. So what is being done? I mean, because going forward, I mean, looking at the cumulative impact of all the different warehouses, if we're going to approve multiple arrest locations, and maybe a last mile distribution center will come in at one point. Is there going to be, or is there like a local district? I know there are countywide districts, state districts looking at air quality and greenhouse gas emissions. But what is being done so that we are looking at that? So when this comes up again and all the questions that the Sierra Club had and the concerns about the cumulative emissions, how is that being addressed sort of for the whole area? So we're not looking at an island for each project.
So I'm going to defer to our CEQA consultants, George Dix and Bill Vosti in particular, I think is the head of sort of like this kind of greenhouse gas emissions analysis. Both of them are on the call. So if one or both of you guys want to jump on and sort of answer Chair Roche's question.
Yeah, I need like a greenhouse gas emissions for dummies because I'm not an expert on this and I'd like a little more information.
Sure, Bill Vosti here. Sorry, do you mind repeating your exact question so I can respond to it best?
Yeah, there was a lot of questions from, the public comments about the cumulative effect of the greenhouse gas emissions for these kind of sites that are going to generate truck trips. And so even though we're not talking about a last mile distribution center at this location, we might be in the future and not having to look at each one as an island, like cumulatively, how are we going to assess the emissions and therefore the carbon impact and what we're going to ask the whole district to do, the whole area to do?
Yeah, so when we analyze greenhouse gas emissions in CEQA, greenhouse gas emissions is inherently a cumulative issue. Mm-hmm. And so the regulations and laws that we analyze our project against are state targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for the entire state to certain goals. The target for 2030, which we refer to as SB 32, that's Senate Bill 32, is 40% greenhouse gas emissions, 40% below 1990 levels by 2030. So what we're analyzing on a project level with our thresholds is if the project is complying with this project specific threshold, it would be in line with making the state meet that 2030 target. So this individual project by meeting its target will assist the state in meeting its overall goals. So that's a way that we connect a project to, the cumulative impact of greenhouse gas emissions.
And what is the overseeing, like, is there a district that oversees that cumulative effect, or is that on an individual, like this project comes up and then we look at the cumulative effect, or is there an overseeing agency just for our area or the county? I mean, that looks at this, beyond the individual impact of that project.
Well, so on a state level, it's the California Air Resources Board, which writes, it's called the scoping plan, which is
but more locally. I guess I'm thinking more locally for our industrial area.
Well, so On the most local level, it will be the city itself. Most or some jurisdictions will have a climate action plan, which is basically outlining that city's approach to meeting these statewide goals, like the city playing its part in meeting the statewide goals. The city does not have a climate action plan for the 2030 goal at this time. So in that case, you tend to look at the project level in compliance with the state level goals. And also there's the city level. The regional level then is your Bay Area Air Quality Management District guidance. And that's kind of like the next step up. So that's, your regional level. And that's where oftentimes we'll use their thresholds in lieu of the city not having like a climate action plan to tier off of.
Okay. And then, so I know Riven was it Riven that is potential occupant. But if it is a different applicant and there is more truck traffic, I guess, Leah, will they have to come back for a different condition of approval for that?
So the traffic analysis that was prepared for the project that fed into the air quality and greenhouse gas analysis, we looked at two scenarios. One that was just general warehousing, and all of this is based on these like gigantic 9 volumes of like traffic counts that are all the way across the country. Stephen Chang could talk about it, called the ITE manual. And what you do is you look at a use and you say, what is the best fit for this use to generate the amount of trips that are going to come out of it, right? So we looked at two scenarios. One that we looked at, the high cube fulfillment. That was what you guys are familiar with, all that discussion with Amazon, remember, and how there was disagreement because it's such a new use. So that was one scenario we looked at, and it resulted in a lot of trips, associated with the proposed project. We also, as part of this project, looked at a second scenario, which was like standard warehousing, manufacturing, industrial building. And that's the one that the applicant is tying themselves to with the use permit that we're talking about and the conditions we're talking about. So those are the trips, and they're associated with just like sort of the uses that would be allowed in the industrial district. As I said, it'll be like probably high tech, hopefully high tech, green manufacturing, some maybe warehousing, and it's just sort of like this big pot of industrial uses. That's the analysis that we went with, because that's going to be what the applicant will place in here. And if one of the uses that's allowed goes into the building, they don't need to come back to clear it with us. They just have to file a business license.
Okay. And then I guess my last question is, I saw, it said that the roof was going to be ready for solar, and I guess that would be up to the tenant to do that. But is there any reason why they wouldn't just go ahead and put the solar? I mean, the building has to be I assume that has to be powered up and all of that. Why wouldn't solar just be put in to begin with?
I think that is a unique question to this particular site. And maybe Leticia can talk about it.
Sure. So I have seen some tenants of industrial buildings invest in solar systems, and it's generally a very great investment for their specific needs. But what we see a lot is that the size of the array is really going to vastly depend on the power need of a specific tenant. So it's very difficult for a developer to guess what size array is actually going to work when you don't have a specific tenant that is in contract. So what we typically do with a speculative development such as this one is we, by code, it's 15% future solar area, but really our buildings are designed so that you could put solar throughout the roof. The structural has capacity to make, as large of an array as it's needed for a tenant. And then that would be something that the tenant would work through based on their specific power needs. Because what would typically happen is even, you could take the approach of, we would install a small system for the site needs, and then they could add on to it. But everything from the sizing of the conduits to the panels that are used may not be applicable for that expanded use. So it really needs to be designed with a specific power need in mind.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Okay, I think that's all I have for now. I'm going to go back to Commissioner Lowe. Looks like you had and then I'll go to Commissioner Kenda after that.
Sorry, I just forgot to lower my hand.
Commissioner Kenda?
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify my understanding that the mitigations for the transportation impacts, like the potential impacts, the mitigations for that are based on the ITE code that's for the higher number of uses, even though that it sort of has a more conservative approach. Is that how you're doing that? I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. So for transportation related impacts, you only look at VMT. We're not looking at truck trips or things like that. That analysis fed into the air quality and greenhouse gas emissions. And regardless of the use, they had the same greenhouse gas emission mitigation measure. So George Dix could probably speak more to this, but in terms of transportation impacts, we look at VMT, and this particular site was actually like scoped out of VMT because it's like located within particular area in the city. It's just within certain maps. So George, do you want to talk about how we used the different transportation scenarios, the different trip scenarios to feed into air quality and greenhouse gases?
So greenhouse gases, I'll start with because it has mitigation requirements. And the way that there's different types of greenhouse gas emissions, or different sources, I should say. There's the emissions that are generated from like the building itself, like operation of the building, the electric that it uses, and the water. And then there's also mobile source emissions, which are your GHG emissions from cars and trucks. And for this project, more than half the emissions, well more than half, are from mobile. The building itself has pretty low emissions that are below the CEQA thresholds. So if it was just the building alone, there would be no mitigation because there would be no significant impact. But when you throw in the truck trips, you end up with a significant impact for GHG. But you end up with that impact for either the high intensity Amazon cube type use or the general industrial use. Regardless of either, you end up over the threshold for GHG, and you have to implement this mitigation measure. Now, the way the mitigation measure is framed is you have to get below 660 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions per year. That's the threshold. And so it's easier to get below that threshold if you have fewer truck trips, and more difficult to get below the threshold if you have a lot of truck trips. And that's where the difference between the two comes out. And part of our mitigation measure is the applicant is going to actually have to develop a greenhouse gas reduction plan that is very specific to his project or their project. And it'll be our GHG emissions are based on a statewide model called Kelly Mod, and you put a bunch of inputs and defaults in there that tells you sort of a very conservative estimate of your emissions. This greenhouse gas reduction plan, the applicant will be required to prepare per the mitigation measure, will be a much more accurate measurement of his actual emissions based on like real life data. And then we will be able to, from there, they'll have to implement strategies to get below 660. So it's sort of like truck trips don't matter in the sense that either way, high use or lesser use, the mobile source emissions are over the threshold requirement mitigation. And I'll defer to Bill. Bill is definitely our expert at RINCON. He keeps up with Kelly Mod, and Bill, if you have anything to add to that, please do.
Yeah, just to add about the greenhouse gas reduction plan, so when we do the CEQA level analysis for an ISM&D, it tends to be a bit higher level, with the specifics that are known at the time. Greenhouse gas reduction plan will take further inputs into account and get a more accurate picture of the greenhouse gas emissions, and be able to, and when you have a more accurate number of what you need to reduce, then we're able to identify specific measures to then reduce it further. So something like at that stage in the greenhouse gas reduction plan, we'll be able to quantify, okay, with the project specific details, we're 300 metric tons above. Solar will reduce it 100 metric tons, et cetera. So we're able to really call out specifically what's going to be done and not just talk about it kind of conceptually. We've done these greenhouse gas reduction plans in the Bay Area. They are, they're implementable, enforceable, And we've gone through this whole process of, this type of analysis.
I appreciate all of that in-depth answer. I was also curious about that, but I was really asking about that I'm looking at this right now in the transportation section. It is on the VMT measurements and like how you get to a less than significant mitigation with these different things you're trying to do, including the food truck and bicycle and bike rack storage. And what I was asking, I guess, was just for my own clarity, was that the transportation VMT miles, the miles traveled here that you're using to measure are based on accounted for the number of trips that would be under a much heavier use versus just the light industrial. So I just wanted clarity on if that was at all related to what you were talking about with the GHGs or you look at daily trips with transportation and with climate. Is that right? Because there's a greenhouse gas section and then there's a transportation section. The transportation section also talks about daily trips. So I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. So transportation feeds into everything.
Right.
You can't do the other analysis without doing that transportation. And we didn't do two different CEQA documents. We did two different scenarios for the transportation. And we picked the one that matches the project, which is not an Amazon delivery station, right? We looked at two scenarios because the applicant wanted to keep their options open. And when we looked at that, we said, okay, here's the scenarios. And they said, we're going to opt to not have an Amazon delivery station here. So we did not use that much, much higher number of mobile source emissions to feed into every other data set, which braids through the entire initial study. So when you kind of pull one string, you hit them all, right? But even with the lower number of mobile source emissions from the second scenario, which is not light industrial, it's just industrial, it still is a significant impact because of the mobile source emissions. Like George said, over 50% are mobile source emissions. And that's the case for single family neighborhoods. Mobile source emissions are what, generates the most greenhouse gases. Anyway, I'm talking about a lot of stuff. Bill is definitely much more of an expert, but I want to assure you that we went with the scenario that matches the project, which is what we should do for CEQA. There's no sense in over mitigating, right? Basing it on a scenario that's not going to happen.
Right. And I just wanted clarity on that. And then that makes more sense for why these specific mitigations were selected versus something stronger. So that's all I was asking. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thanks. Commissioner Goldstein.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a little ironic that we're talking about greenhouse gases as concerns an electric vehicle manufacturer. Just a touch of irony there, but Bill Vosti, I think I heard you, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that the greenhouse gas emissions plan would be affected by, for example, solar. So I'm assuming there are carbon offsets or some other formula that's used when solar panels are installed. Is that correct?
Well, there's ways to, so first of all, it's not, the solar panels is one of the options. It's not been identified specifically. It's one of the potential options that would be identified later. If there were solar panels added, something that we're able to quantify, there's actually state formulas for how they use this for the California building code for how much of what size unit in what area and how many how much carbon dioxide that would reduce. So we can include that in our calculations. In addition to that, there is the option to purchase carbon offsets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions if on-site measures are not able to total up to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions to the threshold. And like we were talking about with the mobile emissions, this might be something that you need to get carbon offsets to help with those mobile emissions that you're not able to reduce with on-site measures.
I see. Okay, very good. So is there anything about the construction, design materials, anything that would prohibit the entirety of the rooftop being populated with solar cells? If someone desired to do such a thing, would that be supported by the construction?
Yes, the structural design of the roof is capable of as in 100% solar array if that was desired by the tenant.
Okay, good. Leah, do you happen to know if we have any agreements between the East Bay Community Energy and any of the other property developers that might allow them to somehow do some kind of build out of solar that would benefit both the tenant and the East Bay Community Energy?
I am not aware of the programs, but I know, Eric, I work closely with Eric Pearson, who kind of is like the city spokesperson. And so anyone who comes in to the city and wants to pursue that as an option would very easily be connected to him.
Okay, so maybe George Condon and his team might want to put that together. I think there might be some financial benefit as well as the GHG issue, and then of course the community benefits because we get more clean energy. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. All right, with no further comments from commissioners, the public is now invited to comment on this item. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak, and I will turn it over to Ms. Chan to moderate that portion.
Thank you, Chair. If you wish to speak and you are using the Zoom application, please click the raise hand button. If you are dialing in, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and use *6 to unmute yourself when called to speak. If you are streaming the meeting through Zoom on your computer but dialing in via phone, please mute yourself so that there is no feedback sound during the meeting. If there is disruptive feedback, your audio will be disabled. All right. So the first person I see is Rich Fierro. Rich, please unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Rich Fierro. I'm a Hayward resident, and I'd like to start off by thanking staff for their thoughtful report, and I urge the commissioners to approve it as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. The next speaker is Kim Huggett. Kim, please unmute yourself.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Kim Huggett. I'm president and CEO of the Hayward Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber's Government Relations Council voted unanimously to endorse this quality project that will bring significant tax revenue and jobs to Hayward. According to the County Workforce Development Board, the loss of Berkeley Farms meant the loss of 300 jobs, adding to a total of 5,600 layoffs in the Hayward-Eden area's manufacturing sector in 2020. The Chamber is looking forward to the prospect of good jobs in fields such as logistics, manufacturing, and data management by the tenants of these buildings. The Chamber has also agreed to partner with Dermody in making fruitful connections with local businesses, Workforce Development Board, and the City Economic Development Office. The Hayward business community urges approval of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Please mute yourself. The next speaker is Francisco Nunez. Francisco, please unmute yourself.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me? Yes, good evening, Planning Commission and everybody in attendance. My name, like I said, Francisco Nunez. I work for the Labor Pacific Southwest Organizing Coalition department, and I'm speaking as an Alameda County resident and a member of Labor's Local 304. Labor's Local 304 represents over 4,300 hardworking men and women in Alameda County, and 1,100 whom of which live in Hayward. I live in Alameda County and previously worked as a general foreman for an engineering company for 16 years. I more than often travel long distances to get to and from jobs throughout Northern California. This travel took a toll on my health and family. A quality project like this one with good paying wages and benefits would mean a lot to our members who live in the county and the city, allowing them to work where they live. More importantly, I think this would provide our young adults, some of which include single mothers, opportunity to work on this project through different apprenticeship programs, starting a lifetime career. You know, for some, it's the only chance at a project that they can actually commute to and from, as transportation can be an issue on its own. And that's during construction, not to mention the long-term job creation from the tenants. It's exciting to hear that Rivian is possibly one there. Those are excellent, great long-term jobs. Furthermore, I want to highlight the tremendous and diligent work that Dermody did in respect to its environmental considerations. You know, they truly went above and beyond to ensure that this project met all environmental benchmarks. Dermody is a great partner that understands the importance of equitable economic forms of development. It's a win-win for everybody, the city, the community, the residents, young adults, long-term jobs. And, you know, with that, I thank you for your time, and I urge you to support the project. We appreciate it. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Francisco. Please mute yourself. The next speaker will be Manny Chin. Francisco, please mute yourself. Okay, the next speaker will be Manny Chin. Manny, please unmute yourself. Manny, would you like to unmute yourself? All right, we're going to go to the next speaker. Mr. Caleb James, can you please unmute yourself?
All right, well, good evening, planning commissioners. My name is Caleb Stockinger. I am a Hayward resident and apprentice with the Sheet Metal Workers Union Local 104. And I think it's very important that we get to have perspective and eye view from people who are construction workers as this project moves through the city process. I think there are not very many opportunities for middle-class jobs in Hayward if you're not attending college or if you have a 4-year degree or anything like that. And as an apprentice, I have had plenty of opportunity to work. I've been able to stay busy throughout the pandemic, throughout all the hard times that have been recently. And I think you could show so many more people in Hayward the same opportunity by giving them jobs. I know this would totally boost the economy, as many people who will be working around here would be able to support local businesses and eat at local restaurants, shop at local stores, and do some grocery shopping. And this project will be used by, worked on by skilled and trained workers who likely will be from Hayward and surrounding cities. And not very many developers, I think, use apprentices for their project, but this project will be built by union apprentices making good wages and benefits. This means that local folks in their earn their wages here and spend their money here. So I think this is the right kind of project in Hayward that will have a major positive economic impact for our local economy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Caleb. Please mute yourself. Thank you. I'm going to call Mr. Chin again. Mr. Chin, would you like to speak? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. All right. Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Let me start by introducing myself. Like you said, my name is Manny Chen. I am here as a proud member of the LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America, as a veteran of the U.S. Army, and on behalf of thousands of members like myself that call this city home. I'm here to ask you that you strongly consider voting in favor of this project, because when you guys are all campaigning, asking for our votes, and said you were represented our best interest, now I'm here to ask you the same, that you honor that and actually vote in favor of this project. This project will allow us to like you may know already that a lot of our members commute. Well, this project will allow us to work in the city that we live in, and will create revenue for the city, and which will create a snowball effect, which will help local businesses and whatnot. A lot of your constituents have to commute in order to make living wages, but by passing the projects like this, you're creating jobs that only create living wages, but also provide benefits of pension, opportunities for veterans like myself to find a career outside the military, lastly generating revenue again for the city. We support this project and many more like this, and we ask you to do the same. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Manny. Please mute yourself. Thank you. The next speaker is Edward Sanduliak. Edward, please unmute yourself.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Edward Sanduliak, and I'm a Hayward resident. My wife, Taryn, and I have lived in Hayward since 2011 and plan to raise our beautiful daughter here. I'm also a member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 595. Tonight, I'm asking you to support the proposed project on Clawwitter. This project is definitely made for Hayward. Hayward is full of diverse working class construction workers like myself, and this project will help the middle class individuals thrive by creating jobs and increasing the amount of time spent with their families. Dermody partners have committed to partner with local contractors who employ Hayward residents like myself that earn a family sustaining wage. This would be a great opportunity for construction workers like myself who live in Hayward to also work close to home instead of commuting. Working close to home makes for a better life that is not full of stress caused by commuting. For a resident of Hayward to also be working in Hayward means that they are less likely to shop in a different city. You're more likely to stop by Hayward businesses on your way home for dinner, like the new restaurant Casa del Toro, or the number of grocery stores like Safeway, Lucky's Grocery Outlet, all of the countless gas stations in Hayward. And all of this is just putting money back into Hayward. I ask that you please pass this project so that we continue to build Hayward into a city that supports the working middle class and provides jobs that are close to home. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Edward. Please mute yourself. Thank you. The next speaker will be Jacob Klein. Jacob, please unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Klein. I'm an organizer for the San Francisco Bay chapter of the Sierra Club. The Sierra Club is in support of the staff recommendations for the former Berkeley Farm site, and we support the commission passing this project so long as the conditions of approval are applied. The electrification and mitigation measures called for in the conditions of approval reflect community needs, like GHG reduction strategies, capacity for rooftop solar, reliance on community choice energy, and more. We appreciate the thoughtfulness of Hayward's municipal code on zoning for different kinds of industrial developments. We'd like to thank the staff and the Planning Commission for their willingness to work with environmental, labor, and community interests to develop projects that support environmental justice, economic development, high-road job creation, and a just recovery. We'd also like to thank the staff for their careful attention to the details of this project and the Commission tonight for your concern on the regional and cumulative impacts of industrial uses. We'd also like to thank our partners with the Teamsters, the Alameda Labor Council, and community groups for their advocacy and collaboration on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. The next speaker will be Doug Bloch. Doug, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, my name is Doug Bloch, and I am with Teamsters Joint Council 7. We have been working with the Sierra Club, the Alameda Labor Council, and community organizations area in response to an explosion in both warehouses and Amazon delivery stations in particular. So we appreciate the thoughtful discussion about the regional footprint as you consider a potential truck terminal or last mile delivery station. You are actually the first planning commission to do so. We support the recommendations.
Doug, you're breaking up a little bit.
Doug, you're kind of breaking up. Maybe
you're breaking up, Doug.
Can I try to call back in?
You're speaking right now. That sounds clear.
Okay, thank you. Let me finish up then. I just want to remind everyone that the hundreds of workers at Berkeley Farms who lost their jobs when it closed were Teamsters. And so are the workers at Gillig who thankfully followed their jobs to Livermore when it moved. That doesn't help Hayward. So we're in discussions with Rivian about the jobs that will be here after the project is built. Our hope is we can bring those good union jobs back to Hayward and put clean vehicles on the road. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doug. If you could please, mute yourself. Thank you. The next speaker will be Martha Krieger. Martha, would you like to unmute yourself, please? Martha, would you like to unmute yourself?
It took a little while for that for the unmute button to pop up. I'm so sorry. So my name is Martha Krieger. I'm the Sierra Club Southern Alameda County Group Chair. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm really grateful to be here in partnership with leaders in environmental justice, organized labor, and with Hayward community members and leaders like you, Hayward City planners and commissioners. Thank you for allowing us time to speak tonight and for supporting a productive, inclusive dialogue throughout this process. We are here to urge you to support the project as presented by the Hayward planners. And I would really like to express my gratitude to the City of Hayward and emphatically commend forward-thinking planning staff, in particular Leah Schmidt, for making changes to your zoning ordinances 2 years ago. I read them, they're really good. And that allow for a really high level of due diligence, exactly as Commissioner Roach's questions and Bridget Lowe. I just have to tell you, I've watched a lot of these meetings. Your questions are amazing. I really am impressed by the level of due diligence you're going through. As a result, Hayward has thoughtfully and with intent made proactive changes to zoning and youth process to meet the challenges of a growing e-commerce sector. You guys have really thought about this. You've prioritized economic development and just recovery. You are mindful of community impacts, community health, and the right of Hayward families to good jobs, fair wages, and safe working environments. Before you even put a project in this industrial sector, Hayward is the burdens of climate change, they're just not equal. And they're not shared equally across all zip codes. And Hayward is already at that 86 Enviro screen level. Your asthma rate is higher than 90% of the census tracts in California. You have a higher diesel particulate matter than 78% of the other ones in California. And commuting in Hayward is hard. Well, it's hard everywhere, but it's higher in Hayward than 85% of the rest of California. So what you're doing here is not just exemplary. I wish everybody knew about it. We know that that last mile delivery station would have added 29 minutes per commute on average, 6 metric tons of greenhouse gases, and it would have put hundreds of additional vehicles on the road. And you guys really paid attention to that. I wish I could take you everywhere. We're incredibly grateful on behalf of families like mine. I'm a mom with 2 kids. And your commitment to doing that highest level of due diligence. The only thing we would ask you to do in future is really look at these industrial projects exactly the way you discussed earlier tonight. Make sure you ask for a full traffic study and a full EIR. Other than that, your staff is amazing. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to work with them and stand in solidarity with organized labor. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Martha. Next speaker will be Vince Segru. Vince, can you unmute yourself, please?
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Vince Agru, and I represent hundreds of sheet metal workers from Hayward as a representative of Local Union Number 104. And the City of Hayward has a rich history of supporting working family values, and I'm proud to see this project before you this evening from a construction perspective. What's in front of you tonight is a well-thought-out industrial campus that will play an important role in our city, and Dermody Properties understands the value of middle-class job creation for Hayward residents and is committed to utilizing a skilled and trained local labor force to help construct it. Construction workers in this city deserve to have quality projects such as this one that support our residents, making a living wage with benefits in retirement. Those are absolutely Hayward values. For the benefit of hardworking Hayward residents, we ask that you please support and approve this project tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. The next speaker is going to be Liz Ortega. Liz, please unmute yourself.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Liz Ortega Toro. I'm the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Alameda Labor Council, representing 135,000 workers in Alameda County, many who live and work in Hayward. And tonight I'm calling to ask that you support the staff report and also encourage Rivian to continue discussions with Teamsters, who used to represent many of the workers at the Berkeley Farms who lost their jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Please mute yourself, Liz. Thank you. Okay, what I'm seeing is the last speaker is Diego Hernandez. Diego, please unmute yourself.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, like you said, my name is Diego Hernandez, and I am also a member of La Una, Labor's International Union of North America. And like my other union brothers, I'm also in support of this project. When I joined the Labor's Union, I signed up to the apprenticeship program. I had no idea what opportunities that would bring. I am now a 17-year member of the Labor's Union, and that opportunity gave me a second chance at a career. The union has given me a career with a livable wage, benefits like health and welfare for me and my family, and I hope one day I will be able to retire with dignity. Those are the opportunities that a union gives. Dormity Properties has been a proven partner that have provided such opportunities to people like me looking for a second chance for a career, which strengthens the middle class. Members of this community that need a second chance at a career will benefit from this project. So I encourage this Planning Commission to vote in favor of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Please mute yourself. Okay, great. Chair, at this time, that would be everybody who has raised their hand has spoken.
Yep. Okay, great. That's what I see too. Mm-hmm. And thank you everyone for waiting and participating this evening. It was really nice to hear all the public comments this evening. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment for this item and move on to commissioner comments. Let me go back to my, for this item. Do we have any, Commissioner Bonilla?
I don't have any comments, but I would be happy to move the item with staff's recommendations.
Okay, great. Do we have a second, and then we can move on to comments?
Second.
So, okay, I think Commissioner Stevens had his hand up first.
No, I was seconding. Sorry, I was seconding.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, that. So Commissioner Bonilla has moved the item. Commissioner Stevens has seconded the item. Okay, is there any discussion on the item at this point? No. Okay. I just want to say, I mean, as far as comments go, and then we'll move on to the vote. I want to say that I'm so pleased with this project. I think that the work that was done with Dermody Partners and the staff was obviously produced a very successful project. And I think Dermody's collaboration with the city and with local labor has obviously proved to be a really exciting project for a lot of people. There's obviously so much interest in it. So I'm really pleased to support this motion. And with that, if there are not, let's see, I will go. Commissioner Lowe, did you want to say something before we move on to voting?
Yeah, I just wanted to applaud the staff and also my fellow commissioners because I watched the meeting, the planning meeting where the Amazon facility was discussed. And I just thought that the way that you all handled that and the way that you resisted the urge to just take the first thing that came along and really challenge that, I thought was really great. And I just wanted to applaud staff and also you guys.
Thank you. Okay, with no other hands up, let us move on to a vote. So we have, let me just go back to my agenda item here. So Ms. Chen, we have a motion on the table to approve staff recommendations from Commissioner Bonilla, seconded by Commissioner Stevens, for the proposed development of a new industrial campus with 2 industrial buildings on 25450 and 25550 Clawwater Road. Denise, are you ready to?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. Okay. Takes a little while for the mouse to get there.
Yes.
Okay, so here we go. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Aye.
Commissioner Bonilla.
Aye. Great project.
Commissioner Goldstein.
Yes, I'm in favor.
Commissioner Lowe.
Aye.
Commissioner Okenda.
Yep. Yes.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yes.
Chair Roche.
Yes, it feels good to support this project. So I am a yes. Thank you.
7 ayes.
Great. Thank you. And with that, the motion passes with 7 yeses. And congratulations to everybody involved with the project. Thank you, everybody. That went actually a little bit quicker than I thought I might go. So next, we're going to move on to our second item, which is the election of officers. And I think maybe if Joe's on the line, just a quick, well, maybe we don't, because I think we went over this last time. But the way it's going to work is we're going to take nominations. We're going to start with the chair position. And we'll take nominations for the chair position, and depending on how many there are, we'll vote on each one, and then move on to vice chair and then secretary. So do we have a motion? It looks like Commissioner Bonilla.
Yes.
Do you want to make a nomination?
Yes, please. I nominate Commissioner Okenda for chair.
Okay, great. So we have a nomination on the table for Commissioner Okenda. Do we have any other nominations? Commissioner Goldstein.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Ali Sullivan for chair.
Okay, great. So we have a nomination for Commissioner Okenda and a nomination for Commissioner Ali Sullivan. And my understanding from previous discussions, the way it'll work is we'll take the first nomination, Commissioner Okenda, and if he reaches majority of votes, then we move on to if he does, then he's elected chair, and if not, we move on to the second vote for Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
I have a question, and the question would be for staff and Joe. Okay, so I believe this there is a protocol for council when voting and making nominations. Does that also apply to the planning commission, that they have to be on the commission for at least a certain amount of time before they can be nominated, or is that not? Does that not hold for the planning commission?
Not hold for the planning commission. A new member can be nominated. And just Chair, I wanted to just mention to make sure that there's no further nominations before you go on with calling the first nomination for a vote. And whoever the first commissioner is to get 4 votes will will fill that position.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Joe. So Commissioner Ali Sullivan, did you want to nominate somebody?
No, just a quick comment. Appreciate Commissioner Goldstein the nomination of, or your mention of me as nominating me for the chair position. I actually would like to respectfully decline the nomination if that is possible. Certainly appreciated, but for my own personal reasons, I'd like to decline at the moment.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, because I think I should have asked each one of you first when Commissioner Bonilla nominated Commissioner Kenda. I should have asked Commissioner Kenda and you as well. So thank you, Commissioner Ali Sullivan. So you're declining the nomination at this point.
Respectfully declining, yes, indeed.
Okay, thank you for that. And Commissioner Kenda, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay. So going back to that. So now I think we take a vote. So, are there any other nominations? Let's see. We don't have them. Okay. So with our nomination on the table of Commissioner Kenda for chair, can we have a vote?
Thank you. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Aye.
Commissioner Bonilla.
Absolutely, yes.
Commissioner Goldstein.
Absolutely, yes.
Commissioner Lowe.
Yes.
Commissioner Okenda.
Yes.
I know. Commissioner Stevens.
Yes.
Chair Roche.
Yes.
7 ayes.
Okay, with that, we have our new chair, Commissioner Okenda. Thank you.
Thank you all. I really appreciate the opportunity to serve all of you and participate. It's a big responsibility, and following the shoes of Chair Roche is going to be real hard. So,
and I'm happy to be here for all. Well, we can talk about it before we move on to the next meeting. Okay, great. Commissioner Sullivan, did you want to say something else at this point? No. Okay, Commissioner Kenda, did you want to say something else?
Oh, nope. Sorry. Just for I have an idea of who to nominate for vice chair.
Okay, well, let's move on to vice chair, and I will take your nomination.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Aidan Ali Sullivan for vice chair.
Okay, and Commissioner Ali Sullivan, do you accept the nomination for vice chair?
I do, yes.
Great. Okay. Any other nominations for vice chair? Nope. Okay, great. So let's take a vote for Commissioner Ali Sullivan for vice chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
I will awkwardly say
I know
aye.
it.
Yeah.
Nobody told me not to. Commissioner Bonilla.
Absolutely, yes.
Commissioner Goldstein.
Yes.
Commissioner Lowe.
Yes.
Commissioner Okenda.
Yes, absolutely.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yes.
Chair Roche.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, great. So we have our vice chair, Commissioner Ali Sullivan. Okay, this is getting easy. Okay, and our final position for secretary. Do we have a nomination? Commissioner Bonilla, do you have a nomination for secretary?
Yes, I nominate Commissioner Lowe.
Great. Okay. Do we any other nominations for secretary? No. Okay. Let's have a vote for Commissioner Lowe as secretary. Commissioner Lowe, do you accept this nomination?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Denise.
All right. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Yes.
Commissioner Bonilla.
Absolutely, yes.
Commissioner Goldstein.
Yes.
Commissioner Lowe.
Yes.
Commissioner Okenda.
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yes, and I proudly turn my signing pen over to you.
Chair Roche.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Well, I'm excited. We get to start the new year with our new officers, and I hope whatever I can do to support anybody in their new position, I'm here for you. And I know the other commissioners who have been chair, like Commissioner Goldstein, Commissioner Bonilla, will be happy to support everybody as well, right? All right, great. Well, thank you, everyone. That was easy.
Then I have one question. Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead, Denise. Yes.
Joe or Jeremy, I have several sets of minutes to be signed. So does Commissioner Lowe, is it effective immediately?
I believe the commissioners wanted to have the chair effective as of next meeting.
Okay.
So perhaps you can have the current chair sign this.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Denise. Okay, let's move on to our next agenda item. With that settled, and that is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Commissioner Okenda?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Sorry, who does it? Commissioner Stevens. Okay, I was cutting off my hands raised, so I didn't see it. So we have a motion to approve the minutes by Commissioner Okenda and seconded by Commissioner Stevens. Denise, one more vote tonight.
All right, hang on one sec. Commissioner Ali Sullivan?
Abstain.
Abstain. Commissioner Bonilla?
Yes.
Commissioner Goldstein?
Yes.
Commissioner Lowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Okenda?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Chair Roche?
Yes.
Thank you. 6 ayes, 1 abstain.
Thank you. And with that, the motion passes to approve the minutes from the meeting of November 18th, 2021. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to commission reports. Do we have any reports from planning? Jeremy.
Good evening, commissioners and new chair, new electors. Just wanted to report out, this is the only meeting of the month, so please don't try to come up the week of Christmas because there'll be no one here. Our next scheduled meeting for the Planning Commission is June 13th. Right now, we don't have anything scheduled for that meeting. Right now, it looks like it possibly would get canceled. I did want to just highlight for the rest of the commission some of the things that we would anticipate happening early in the new year. We will be returning back and hopefully be scheduling a joint work session between the City Council and the Planning Commission to go over that objective standards discussion that we started earlier this year, as well as talk about potential updates to our density bonus ordinance. So the date is being discussed. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but when we have more information, I'll be more than happy to communicate that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Let's see, commissioner announcements. Commissioner Bonilla.
Just want to say happy holidays to everyone. Great work in 2021. It's been fun doing this again virtually for a second year, but I look forward to getting back with all of you during the new year. But until then, happy holidays, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, and I guess we'll all see each other on the 16th, right?
Friday.
Yeah. Friday, and then also, right, weren't we having, anyway, the thing on the 16th. All right. Anyway, I also wish everybody happy holidays. I hope you enjoy this time off and, and have a great rest of the year. I enjoyed being chair, and I am also happy to pass this off to Commissioner Okenda. And like I said before, I will do anything I can to support you on this. Commissioner Okenda, you're going to be great. So, and thank you, Commissioner Ali Sullivan and Commissioner Lowe for stepping up as well for vice chair and secretary. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Then I will adjourn the meeting. It's 8:41 p.m. and hope everyone has a good evening. Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Well, happy holidays and be safe.
Bye.
Thank you.
Everyone.